This week on Head to Head, Luke's connection with the Force.
You're listening to Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars. Begins now.
Hello, everybody. I'm Eric Vancil.
And I'm Darryl Sanders.
And we're your hosts for this podcast. So I finally was able to watch more episodes of Star Wars Resistance.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like it.
You know what? It's actually a pretty good show. I was really surprised because, you know, at first it was billed as being just a kid's show.
Mm-hmm.
But, and that's true. Don't get me wrong. It is totally geared for kids. You could tell that that's what they had in mind.
Even with the animation, you can tell.
Yeah, that's true. I never really thought about it that way, but you're right. Even with the animation, you can kind of tell.
Mm-hmm.
But much to my surprise, it has something in it for everybody. I mean, there's some pretty deep storytelling in that.
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually have heard that it's actually been heating up pretty heavily lately, especially with the last couple of episodes. I still haven't had a chance to watch it yet, so I might have to one day just binge watch it one day.
Yeah, well, keep in mind that, you know, I say I progressed beyond the first few, but, I mean, let's face it, I'm still only on episode like 5 or something, and there's like 12 episodes.
Oh, okay, yeah. But I've heard it's been heating up. I've been kind of keeping track of it through the Star Wars community, and people have been talking about, oh, yeah, you know, this has been going on. So it seems to be, you know, more than what most casual fans even would think about this particular show. Is actually a little bit more in depth and actually going into some stuff. So
yeah, and I mean, there's actually a lot more canon stuff and everything that you're learning, which I was actually really surprised. You know, because at first I thought it was just going to be like a kid-type show where it was just going to feature some stories that would be interesting, but wouldn't necessarily add too much to the lore or whatever. But I was really shocked to learn that they're doing stuff that is furthering along the canon. Like, you're actually learning what's happening to some of the characters, like Poe, like even BB-8, and things like that. And, you know, even the First Order, and I know Captain Phasma's appeared in at least one episode I've seen. And
yeah, I heard that she was going to actually be mentioned a lot more and actually maybe even showing up.
She does. And I guess she plays a really prominent role. So,
well, that's good, at least somewhere.
Yeah. So, you know, guys, make sure that you watch for that. You know, if you're not watching Resistance yet, make sure that you definitely check it out. All right, it's time to go to the Cantina.
Yes.
Time to get those Christmas drinks.
Absolutely. Bring on the knock.
Little eggnog. So what do we got first?
Oh.
As he finds the phone.
Well, my holocron is acting. Really?
Oh, see, this is what happens, folks. This is why it's TV.
Yeah.
All right.
Getting used to being on this whole camera thing.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little bit new.
But I got it. I'm back.
You got it?
I'm back.
All right. He's back.
So here we go. So the first thing I want to talk about is the tight security around the script for episode 9. So I was reading that, you know, J.J. Abrams, of course, he's been notorious for, you know, keeping everything hush-hush as far as episode 9. He's very secretive about who he lets on the set, and how much stuff leaves the set or what can, you know, go out. So one of the big things is that the script has been made into this weird, I guess, a red-colored hue that won't allow it to be photocopied. So if you try to put it like in some sort of like copy machine or whatever, like you can't read the letters on it.
That is so mission impossible.
I know, man. This is like,
you know, I mean, I'm sitting there thinking, and I've read some of this stuff, even when you go as far back as the prequels, you read a lot of these things that, you know, happen with the script, like they would send like armed guards or whatever.
Yeah, or it has like a person has I guess some more attaché person that actually brings the script,
and
then
they
have to stand there next to you, and then they take it back. You know, you can't even keep it. You know, you have to.
And it's just so funny because things are just getting so like next generation. You know, as far as the technology and the security and all that, and you have to keep in mind that this is just a movie. Yeah, and yet this, you know, they're treating it like they're guarding some government secrets or something.
I know, but I think that just really just speaks to, you know, the greatness of Star Wars. Of, you know, people really just want to see a good movie. Unfortunately, you do have those jerks out there who will ruin it for everybody.
Yeah,
you know, and that's the unfortunate thing, is that there are bad people, the Grinches of the world, since we're in the holiday season.
Nice Christmas reference.
Yeah.
Should we talk about the Star Wars Christmas special?
Please, no.
You know what? We should have made that the featured topic for this week. Now that I'm thinking about it,
I wouldn't be here. We were talking about it. But you know what? Back to the security thing, though. Like Mark Hamill's even just talking about, you know, how crazy it's been for him, just as far as, and there's not even physical copies of it anymore now. Now it's all like these weird digital formats, and, it's all encoded with all this stuff.
It's funny. Speaking of Mark Hamill, I remember reading, and it actually has to do with this, that when he got the script for the very first one, A New Hope, he got the copy of the script. He's showing it to all his friends, seeing what they think of it.
No one even heard of Star Wars.
Nobody heard it. Nobody cared. Now, here's the interesting thing. This is what we can talk about. Now, obviously, one of the reasons why this was the case is because nobody knew what Star Wars was, so nobody really even cared.
Right. It wasn't a phenomenon.
It wasn't a phenomenon. But even though that's the case, right? We're now living in an age where, with technology, I mean, you get a hold of something, you can share it, you can save it, you can
instantly take a picture of it.
Take a picture, share it on social media. And it makes me wonder, if A New Hope were released today, would there be a little bit of security attached to that?
Well, I mean, I don't think so. If A New Hope was still the first Star Wars movie.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it, though, there's a lot of movies that, just come out, and depending on what they're trying to do, because if they were making A New Hope now, and let's just say it was unlike any other sci-fi movie or fantasy movie that was out, excuse me, they might actually try to, at least give a somewhat of a shroud of mystery. Because even lesser movies.
I mean, it might do a little bit, but I mean, not to this degree, though. I think this.
Well, yeah, okay,
like
red hue paper that you can't even photocopy and all that. Yeah, that might be a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get that type of stuff until it becomes like this mega blockbuster hit.
So, in other words, like if Empire Strikes Back were made, say, 3 years from now.
Yeah, now that would, especially, if that was released in today's generation and after A New Hope, yeah, I could see that for that.
Oh, absolutely.
Especially with that particular spoiler of Vader being Luke's father. I mean, you definitely wouldn't want to,
Spoiler alert, everybody.
Yes, from 30 years ago.
Right. For those of you who still haven't watched it, or listened to this podcast, or watched us on YouTube now.
Or have lived under a rock for the last...
or have seen anything. Hey, they're still out there, though. There's people who have never seen a Star Wars film.
That's true, but everybody still knows, though. Luke, he says it. Like, it's on T-shirts, it's on everything. I mean, how do you not... Even if you don't watch Star Wars, you know
Well, they know it now.
Well, oops.
You spoiled it for everybody. But yeah, it's true. That they might actually protect the secret if Empire Strikes Back were made... in today's society, with today's technology and all that, they probably would go to some length to protect it. But it just amazes me, though, every time I read these things about security on the set or, just all the security measures that they're taking. And it just shows how rabid the fan base is.
Yeah.
That you have to protect it to that degree because everybody wants to know what's going to happen.
But what's funny is I don't recall it being that heavy for 8. Like, it's almost as if 8 was
it is.
I mean, I'm sure there was some security definitely
for it. It almost seemed like Rian Johnson was just sort of in his own little bubble, making the movie, and nobody was really. But you know what part of that is, though? If you think about it, he didn't go quite the degree that Ron Howard did, but he did actually share some stuff from the set.
He was very engaging.
He's a little bit more open. JJ's the one that inspires all this secret stuff because he just won't share anything.
Well, I also think in his predicament, it kind of makes sense too, because with 7, I look at it from this standpoint. Star Wars is being reintroduced to the world.
Yeah.
All over again.
Yeah.
After episode 3.
Right.
So it's a whole new cast of characters. You're dealing with a whole new story.
And you also had the original cast coming back, which is going to make it even more like people really want to see and see what the what the deal is.
Yeah, so I think that requires that extra shroud of mystery, and because you don't know what the story is going to be. I mean, that's one thing we've always talked like, man, we just don't even know where they're going to go with it.
Yeah, I remember when 7 first was coming out, like when we first, and then we knew it wasn't going to be based on the Timothy Zahn trilogy. Yeah, it's like we don't even know what it's going to look like. We don't know anything. It was the first time because when the prequels came out, you knew where they had to end up.
Right.
You didn't know how they were going to necessarily depict it.
Yeah.
But you knew that, okay, these are the beats that they have to hit. and this is where they have to end up. And you knew some of the new characters, you didn't know who was going to die or who was going to live, but you knew Obi-Wan Kenobi was going to survive.
Of course.
I mean,
yeah, but I think why there's such a shroud with this one is because it's the last. Like, you don't know how it's going to end either.
Yeah.
So that middle one, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, we could kind of wait because you kind of know the characters. You still are anxious to know what's up with Rey. Of course, everybody had the speculation. People want to know what's going on with Snoke, and of course Luke. That was a big thing, was because no one knew. We saw Luke for like 2 seconds.
Well, after everything that was happening in 8. They kill off Snoke. They do all this stuff. It's making 9 even more of a mystery. In fact, I would dare say that 9
is even more of a mystery.
Almost as much of a mystery as 7.
Yeah.
But for different reasons.
Absolutely.
Because, Rian Johnson, with his story, turned everything so much on its ear that you're kind of like, well, now I have no idea where this is going.
Yeah. And, I just think that, with this particular film, with it being the last one of the saga, especially with the original cast, it's kind of like, okay, we really got to bring this home. So, and like he said, he's trying to tie in everything like that. So it's even going to be more, things that's like, okay, we can't let these things out. And I wonder how many twists and turns we're going to see in 9. So
yeah, it
stands to reason.
I know. All right.
Well, the next thing is, speaking of 9, Luke Skywalker, our favorite Jedi. He's coming back, as we know, for 9.
Right.
But so we kind of found out that Mark Hamill has been shooting some stuff for 9 already. He took a break to kind of work on another project. He's on another TV series.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, but he's actually coming back after he's finished wrapping that up to shoot some more stuff for 9. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, his shooting schedule, how much are we going to see of Luke Skywalker? How much has he shot already? How much is there left to go?
I heard that he was only on the set for maybe 2 or 3 weeks or something, and then he took the break, and now he's coming back.
And I heard he's supposed to come back for maybe another week or 2.
Yeah, it sounds to me like we're not going to see that much Luke Skywalker, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely probably we're going to have the Force Ghost Luke.
Yeah,
but I hope that's just not it. But they and I don't know if we're going to actually see the light. I mean, that's one of the things too, is that people have been trying to find out if he actually has his lightsaber with him. So,
well, if he's a Force Ghost, though, are you talking about just like somehow in his possession, or are you talking about he's got like a Force Ghost lightsaber too?
Well, what I'm saying is, like, normally when you see Force Ghosts, like when we've seen Obi-Wan in the past, Yoda, they've never had their sabers with them because it's like, for what? What do you need it for?
Right.
So, but if he has it, then that just kind of makes you wonder, well, what do you have it for? You know what I mean?
Well, there's another thing to consider too, and this is something that, we've talked about this quite a bit, is the fact that when Yoda appeared in Episode 8, it changed the whole dynamic of Force Ghosts.
Yeah.
Here's a Force Ghost that's making physical contact with him, and, so has some sort of physical form in a sense, and then also that whole lightning thing that he did.
Yeah.
He's causing things to happen in
real
the world.
Yeah.
Physical things.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're looking at things like that, now that Force Ghosts to a degree have been redefined, it's making me think that Luke now is going to carry that even further.
Yeah.
The question becomes how much further, though, and how much of a role does he play? And you have to look at, if Mark Hamill's not appearing on the set that much, and his scenes are, let's just say, maybe a month worth. Now, granted, there's been a lot of movies where the whole first unit production is 28 days or something.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like for all principal photography. So it's possible that maybe he does play a role, but like a big role, but it just sounds to me like the way that he's been talking.
Yeah, that he's not really in it.
Yeah, he just doesn't seem to have like the biggest role.
Yeah, I think that.
But how do you feel about that, though?
I mean, I want more Luke just because I feel like we didn't get enough of him in 8. I feel like in 8 we did.
I agree.
We saw. I mean, we got a lot of him, but not the him that we know.
Well, let me ask you this, though.
We wanted to see from Luke.
It's almost like a second part to the question. Let's just say that Luke's role is minimal. Mm-hmm. Do you think that would be worse than not having him in it at all? Because I actually see, it's almost like when you're giving somebody a little taste of something, it's almost like it makes you crave it even more.
Yeah, it's almost like better to love and lost than never to have loved at all type thing. It's like,
yeah, I mean,
you get something for a little bit and then it's gone. It's like, well, dang, I almost wish I never would have had it because then I can't miss it.
You can't miss it, and that's, that's the key, right?
Yeah, I definitely get it. And I think if I'll put it to you this way, it depends on how they use them.
Okay,
I think if they use him in a way that's like, whoa, off the charts, amazing.
Almost like he has this one really dynamic scene.
Yeah, like he comes back and he's just like,
this is just the most incredible thing ever.
He's like, you know what? I'm good.
you know what? Well, if
it's that moment,
well, we've been talking about Yoda like that, right?
Yeah.
Yoda was in there for what, like maybe 5-10 minutes at the most. Mm-hmm. One of the highlights of the movie.
Yeah.
And it was really impactful.
Yeah, because he in typical Yoda form, he gave his lesson and then he showed you some things. But
it actually reminded me a lot of the way that Yoda was used in Rebels.
Yeah.
Like that one scene where he was talking to Ezra and he was kind of like, it's almost ethereal in a way.
Yeah, in that one temple, that one Jedi temple.
Yeah, and he sort of appeared to him or something like that. And it was sort of like because Yoda was still alive at that point, but I mean, it was almost like he projected himself, very much like the Luke Skywalker thing. And you know what? I never thought about it until now, but maybe that's not the first time that's ever been done.
And maybe that's where he got it from.
Yeah, it could have been where he got it from. Because, I was always talking about how that just totally demonstrated Luke's power because now, granted, he did a little bit more because he did like kind of a pseudo battle, but
right.
Something to think about.
But see, and that's another thing that makes you wonder because, granted, Luke ignited the saber in 8 against Kylo. Mm-hmm. But he never swung it, if I recall correctly. Like, their blades never came in contact with each other.
I admit that it's been a minute since I've seen 8.
Well, you guys definitely...
one of these days, you guys...
Hey, look at it.
Right in the comments section.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't think that he actually engaged Kylo in an actual...
Yeah, I know he kept ducking out of the way.
Yeah, he kept moving out of the way. And then, of course, at the very end, when he just stood there and then Kylo tried to run him through with it, it just passed through him. Mm-hmm. So, on one hand, it's like, okay, well, if that's the Force, like, you can kind of control whether you're physically present, like you said, where Yoda could actually hit Luke over the head with his stick, but then on another instance,
and that's another thing too,
you can let things pass through you. It's like you almost become like Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, like you could do either or. Like, but I mean, here's the thing that's funny about that. Where did he get that? That stick was like his Force Ghost stick or something. That was like his cane.
Yeah, and why do you still need it?
Yeah, why do you still have that?
Yeah, exactly.
And how is the cane ethereal?
See,
so now you can take accessories with you. See, this is the kind of thing that
this is why but this is the conversation.
I'll tell you though, man, I think that this is the reason why though a lot of people were frustrated with 8 because 8 almost brought up more questions than it really answered.
Oh yeah, definitely. We're going to get into those because it's definitely a whole.
Well, yeah,
I
know.
Later on, yeah,
I know.
So, gotta hold those.
I know. I gotta hold it. I gotta
hold those thoughts. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about was also the trailer.
Oh, yes.
So
last podcast, we talked about how it was going to drop before the end of December. Do we have any news about, obviously, that's been updated because it's a segment.
Yeah, so apparently, we're supposed to get it either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. So that's where everyone's been kind of talking and speculating about that's going to come out then. But there's some people who are of the mindset, and I could kind of see it from that perspective too, from a business perspective, with all the other movies that Disney is putting out, Avengers, Mary Poppins, and all those things that are coming out, is this the right time to drop the trailer? Or do you wait?
I would say this is the perfect time to do the teaser trailer, because remember, the teaser trailer is only going to be like 30 seconds. And it goes back to exactly what we were talking about on one of the last podcasts. I know it was either a week ago or 2 weeks ago. We talked about if it does drop on Christmas, because you were the one that brought up Christmas Eve. Mm-hmm. we might have mentioned Christmas Day, but I know for a fact you mentioned Christmas Eve because you said that's when families are together.
Yep.
They see the trailer, then they start talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
They're all together. And this is normally when you would get a Star Wars movie. So it's a good time that Star Wars can, in a way, still own December.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it's not in a local theater, it's in your local conversations.
Mm-hmm.
And don't forget that Episode 7, The Force Awakens, that trailer was actually dropped in November. It was Black Friday, actually.
Yep.
So, and that was a year away. So they need to start putting Episode 9 in people's minds. And then what they can do is during Celebration, which is going to be, what's that, in April?
Yep.
So they can drop, like, say, the first full trailer. And then maybe during the late summer, early fall, they can start dropping. You know how they do. I mean, a month before the movie, then you start getting so many trailers. You get the international ones, and you're kind of like, okay.
Dude, I just want to see the movie.
I want to see the movie. Let's stop with trailers now. But,
right.
Those are the kinds of things that you actually have to look at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I just think that, well, I hope that that's something they, give us as a little Christmas gift.
It'd be nice, but you know what?
Nice. But if not, I can still
absolutely. Wait. And I don't envy the marketing department.
Right.
Because you do have to really gauge these things, and you have to try to, figure out, like, man, is it really the right time? Now, granted, these guys all have tons of degrees and all this stuff. But even with the light marketing that I do for my bands, for, of course, our business, Chromatin Productions, to the Eric Vancil Media thing that I got going now, this whole program that you're watching on YouTube right now, I mean, even that, it's like just deciding when to put this out and when to put this release out, to let people know about this and update pictures on, everything's timing based.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with a property that costs, each film's like hundreds of millions to make, like 100 or 200 million. And you saw the misstep with Solo.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if they weren't going to release it, or I'll put it this way, if they're not going to release it for the holidays, I would say by the Super Bowl will be the next best time.
Yeah, if they don't do it Christmas, like if for some reason, now I was looking on Screen Rant the other day, and they said that it was confirmed that it was going to be on Christmas.
Christmas Day?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we'll have to watch that.
Definitely.
I mean, we'll know. Well, at the time you guys are watching this, it'll be like tomorrow because we're releasing this on Christmas Eve. So the next day after this podcast, everybody's going to know whether or not it was actually done or not. Now, if it was, great. We'll have more to talk about.
Definitely.
However, I agree with you that if they don't do it for Christmas Day, they should definitely do it in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Because, see, the key is they have to start putting Episode 9 in people's minds. Because, number one, it's not just the bad taste that Last Jedi left in everybody's mouths. It's also the fact that you had Solo, and what I'm afraid of is that the whole Star Wars release schedule has become convoluted. And, you're hearing about The Mandalorian, you're hearing about all these other little things. And, okay, we're fans, but, so we know all this stuff. But a lot of people, they don't know. There's half the people that probably think The Mandalorian's going to be the new movie.
Yeah, I mean, I mean that's true. I mean, you do have to take into account,
I've heard people say, Solo, was that a sequel to 8?
Yeah, I mean,
people just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, when you're releasing a lot of different content from the same property, it does get kind of confusing because, even with Marvel, you have, we've got the Captain Marvel trailer, but then you also now are promoting Avengers Endgame. Mm-hmm. So those are two things that are kind of
that's a
back.
Good point, actually.
They're going back to back.
Sure, and especially because Captain Marvel takes place in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's wondering, are we going to find out what happened with Thanos? It's like, no, this is like 20 years ago.
Yeah, this has nothing to do with
nothing to do with it. It's just another Marvel. But I'll tell you this, though. A lot of people are conditioned because there's multiple Marvel movies that are released in a year, right? There's usually like 2, 1 or 2. So I think people are actually used to getting, these movies all over the place or whatever. And then, because half the people, look, let's face it, the casual fan isn't even differentiating between Marvel and DC.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people think
look at it
Aquaman is part of
right.
It's one of the Avengers
okay,
too. Like,
whether it's Captain Marvel or whether it's Avengers or Ant-Man and Wasp or whatever, and then Aquaman and Batman v Superman, all these other movies, all people are looking at is, it's a bunch of comic book movies.
Yep.
They're not really going, this is a Marvel movie versus this is a DC movie.
Yeah.
So with Star Wars, it's almost the same kind of thing, except with Marvel and DC, they're basically releasing stories and they're releasing things that have already been released in the comics. Now, granted, they are changing the stories quite a bit in a lot of cases, but people have, they've known about Batman and Aquaman and Spider-Man and Superman and all this stuff for a while. Mm-hmm. The Star Wars thing, though, people don't have a context that they can necessarily put that in. So when you release, say, Solo, there's nothing about that says, this takes place between... whatever and whatever, know?
Exactly. It goes with it. And because the other thing, too, is that, the Marvel stories have already been kind of written out already.
Yeah.
Everybody's known about Ragnarok. Everybody's known about the Avengers.
Well,
everybody's kind of, for me,
not everybody.
What I'm saying is,
I'm talking, because I'm mostly talking about outside fan. I'm not talking about anybody within the fan bases of either Star Wars or the comic books.
Well, even at that, you still can go find it, though. It's available to you.
Okay, that's true.
Maybe that's the better way. It's available to people. Whereas,
that's a great point.
But you don't, 9 is not available to anybody. Heck, it's not even available to Mark Hamill. So,
I was going to say, they got red hue
I know, comic
things
book
that
paper.
you can't. Yeah, even if he wanted to copy it and send it to his friends, he can't do it.
Yeah, exactly. So
I'll bet you he can copy a Marvel script.
Maybe not Avengers, but...
Oh, yeah, Avengers too.
But I think that's the thing with the trailers is that you really have to be cognizant of what properties you have, because that's the other thing too, especially with Disney's, because they have so much.
Mm-hmm.
You have Disney films and their own movies that they're releasing, then you still have Marvel, then you still have Star Wars, and then you have all these other properties that you have to manage. And it's like, okay, you don't want one stepping on the toes of the other, because then you're going to cut down the marketing of something you should be promoting that's actually about to happen versus something that's taking place a year from now. So it's like,
and
you really have to be cognizant of that.
Well, and that's where I think that one of the biggest problems they had with Solo is that because it was coming out so soon after The Last Jedi, it's like they had to start the marketing campaign. Like when The Last Jedi was just heating up, they had to start promoting Solo, and it's kind of like...
Yeah. It's like the fans didn't get a chance to digest it.
No, and not only that, but I remember when you and I went and saw The Last Jedi, we're like, I wonder if we're actually going to see a trailer for Solo for the movie. Like, it would make sense. And then the problem is, they didn't actually even release a trailer to a couple of months before the movie came out?
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah.
So
get that push. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I really hope they do the right thing, in my opinion anyway. Mm-hmm. And that is release the trailer on Christmas Eve. Release the trailer for Episode 9 on Christmas Day, rather. And it's a year out. Let's see. Of course, what they're going to do. They're going to give you all these images that are going to... We were talking about, would it be better to see no Luke versus a little bit of Luke and make us hungry? That's what's going to happen with the trailer. They're going to show us just enough to get us... it's like crackheads.
Yeah.
It's like a dealer. Okay, give them a little bit, right? Get them addicted, and then you just charge them a ton of money at that point.
Of course, Eric doesn't know that.
Of course, I don't actually have firsthand knowledge. There's a disclaimer running at the bottom of this video right now. Hey, I guess on the podcast, I might have to start clicking that explicit content box.
Oh, the fans are watching.
Talking about drugs. All right. Rock on.
Hey.
Look, guys, Abso Pure Water. I promise.
Not absinthe, but... But, yeah, so, I think that's going to be cool. I think it's going to be interesting. We have to definitely keep a lookout for the trailer.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to see any Luke. I definitely think they're going to hold that. Especially if he doesn't have a whole lot to do with the movie. They're definitely not going to...
shot it yet. Well,
they're definitely not going to, let that...
I would totally agree with that we're not... Because, number one, they don't want to show us the context to which he is. is, because if we see any images of Luke,
we already know.
Unless they want to trick us and do like a little flashback type.
Yeah,
of thing.
or
like we see him on Octo or something.
Yeah, or show like a flashback from Last Jedi, like kind of a clip with the voiceover or something, and you know how they're continuing a conversation or something.
Yeah, I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They're really good at misdirection, especially now that JJ's back at the helm. Remember in the trailer how we saw that one scene that didn't actually appear until The Last Jedi, where Luke's robotic hand was touching R2 while he was watching the temple burning or whatever.
Right.
I mean, well, that never appeared in 7.
Yes, it did in the flashback.
Well,
in the vision.
Yeah, but you didn't get the context, as what I'm saying, until 8, though. Like, that implied that we were going to see some things that we never actually saw. The only time we really saw Luke for real was at the end of the movie, where he just gave us this blank stare, and then the credits came up. You know, I mean, it's like, what was that all about?
It was like one of those old, I've been into the whole Batman 1960 version of the Adam West and Burt Ward television series. See,
if only they basically said, that will Luke actually, those whole announcement things.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Same bat time.
That's exactly what I was thinking about.
Dude, I love that show.
Man,
did you get the Blu-ray yet?
I didn't get the Blu-ray. I actually have the regular ones, but I'm probably going to end up getting the Blu-rays too. But
I don't have them yet either. I mean, I grew up on that show basically, and I mean,
me too. Of those like
that
30
thing
years later.
Well, here's the funny thing. When I was a kid, it was only when it came out like 66, right? Okay, so I was probably watching it in like 75, 76. So it was only about 10 years later. And naturally, I'm thinking it's just like a new show.
Me, same here.
Same thing with Star Trek, the original Star Trek. I thought that when it was on, like Channel 50, which if you're not from the Detroit area, is like, it was sort of like a UHF channel back then versus like the actual networks. I thought it was a new show. I was really surprised that it had been out already. In that case, in both shows' case, they were out and canceled by the time I started watching them.
Well, the same thing happened with me with Star Wars. Like, when I saw Star Wars as a kid, I thought these were just new movies. Like, I had no idea that these came out, like, in 77. I mean, like, I thought this was just some new movie that came out of the theaters. Two
fans, 2 generations, all things Star Wars.
There you go.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's it. That's the beauty of Star Wars, though, is the fact that every generation that comes up, it's like it belongs to them.
Yeah, the kids growing up who love Star Wars now, they think it's their thing, and they think like, oh.
Well, we could probably do a whole feature topic on this, but it actually reminds me of the fact that I was talking about this with somebody. It was another person my age. I don't even remember who it was. And, because Star Wars, we were the first ones to actually experience it, we took some ownership of it. And as stuff started coming out and time went on, you now have another whole generation, not just yours, but even the one after, where the prequels were the first thing. And because, you came into it even before the prequels were there. So you're sort of still like kind of in that in between. Well, the kids that just got into it that were like maybe 7, 8, 9 years old at the time the Phantom Menace came out.
Right.
So it's sort of like that's their Star Wars. Now you have this weird dichotomy of fans, each claiming ownership of Star Wars. And I think that's one of the reasons why you have division currently, where you get things like The Last Jedi, because there's certain things that the original fans like or don't like. There's things that newer fans like or don't like that might be different from the original fans. And it's like the whole Star Wars fandom is becoming somewhat convoluted because it's not as united, because not everybody has the same experience with it.
Yeah.
So it's getting really interesting.
Definitely.
So is that it? Or
that's it. I think
we're leaving the cantina?
Yeah, we can put these drinks away.
All right. Well, what do we got next?
Well, we have this week on Duel of the Fates. We have, which would you rather have by your side? Chewbacca or Lando Calrissian?
Ooh.
Now, this goes more so like as your sidekick.
Yeah,
so.
I get it. As your sidekick, like,
who would you rather
partner, You're roaming around the galaxy with one of these guys. Who's it going to be? Okay. I'm going to probably say Chewbacca.
Okay.
We're assuming that I can actually understand Wookiee, right?
Yeah, okay. I'll give you that.
Okay, because that's got to be a prerequisite, because it would be easier to say Lando simply because he speaks English.
Right.
Or basic, as they call it in Star Wars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Reason why I'm saying this, because in a way, it would be tempting to say Lando, because Lando's very resourceful, Lando's charismatic, Lando could probably get you further in certain situations. Here's my problem. He's not as trustworthy. Chewbacca is loyal to a fault. Lando, as we learn from the novels, and you do have to read the new canon novels too, in addition to seeing the movies, he became loyal, right? So once, he betrayed them to the Empire on Bespin, and then he rescued Han and everybody, and then he started becoming general in the rebellion. He kind of went on this similar thing that Han Solo did, where, once the whole thing was somewhat over, he really didn't know where he fit in. It was sort of like his old life was tugging at him, and then he had his new life. So, I think that Lando's loyalties and everything would wane a little bit situationally. It would depend on the situation and the circumstances. Chewbacca, on the other hand, once he's with you, he is fully with you. And he would never, ever, for any reason, turn against you. He would never sell you out. Not to mention the fact, another big reason is the dude's super strong. I mean, you walk anywhere with Chewbacca, you're pretty safe. Let's not forget that deleted scene from The Force Awakens where he literally did rip the arms off of Unkar Platt.
Yeah.
I mean, that was pretty big. I don't know. What about you?
I'm going to go with Lando.
Oh, it is a true duel of the fates this week.
Yes. No, I definitely would go with Lando. I mean, as much as I love Chewie, and you are absolutely right, Chewie is loyal to a fault. And he's very protective. He's definitely even a great pilot. He's still a great co-pilot. He still knows his way around the ship. He knows how to fix things. So I mean, he's he's
in a lot of ways you can't go wrong really with either one. It's just there's different reasons behind it.
Yeah, but I think for me, I would have Lando simply because I think Lando, like for all the reasons that you said, I think he's very charismatic and he can get you in and out of situations. And then also with him also being a great pilot, he has a lot of resources that you could use. And I think that he's cunning. I think his cunningness kind of comes in handy, especially when he's on your side, because like, okay, if you can't think of a way out of it, he might be able to.
You hit the nail on the head. When he's on your side.
Yeah, but I guess I'm going, but I think if he really likes you, and then, like I said, he wouldn't be my sidekick, I guess, if, we really didn't have that great relationship. No different than Han, because even though he sold Han out, he didn't want to. It's just that he had to, at that moment, his hands were tied.
Yeah, it was just
But I think he always, in the back of his mind, was like, okay, trying to figure out a way to save Han, because he realized he doesn't like
Don't get me wrong.
either.
He definitely has some loyalty to his friends and everything like that, but he would actually sell you out and then try to figure out a way to undo that, whereas Chewbacca would never sell you out.
Right.
He would just die trying to whatever he had to do.
It puts you more at ease with Chewbacca, knowing that like he would just
he's there, and don't forget, he's an amazing pilot too.
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like Chewie can actually. I mean, we even saw it in Force Awakens.
Well, and not to mention the Last Jedi.
Last
what
Jedi,
he did that door.
Yeah.
Imagine if somebody got in your way. Be like, Chewbacca?
He's also quite handy with
take care of this for me.
That bowcaster too, man, is no joke.
Oh yeah, as soon as Han Solo
I mean, he popped Kylo from.
He just, yeah. Or don't forget, like, what he did to all those First Order stormtroopers after all that happened, too. He just mowed them down.
Not to mention, even choked Lando out almost. So, but I just think that. I was
still going with Lando.
I'm still going with Lando, though. I like the risk game. You know, I like the risk of, you know.
Don't get me wrong. There are definitely a lot of things where Lando is definitely an asset. I mean, honestly, if this is a wish list here, give me both of them.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Can we do a trio? But I mean, if I had to choose, I'm just saying if I had to choose one.
Yeah.
If I had to choose one.
Trying to have a side chick.
Sidekick, side chick.
Same, well.
You know.
Point well made.
All right, so I'm going for Chewbacca.
I'm going Lando.
You're going Lando. Well, what do you guys think? You know, leave your comments below this video. Let us know what it is you think. Obviously, you heard what we said. Don't forget also to check us out on our social media pages. We got our Facebook. We got our Twitter. We're at head-to-head-SW. We love to hear from you guys. We want to get more ideas. Do you guys have an idea for Duel of the Fates? Love to hear it.
Yep, let us know.
Put us head-to-head.
Yeah, we'll go for it.
Yep. All right. What do we got next?
Well, next we have From a Certain Point of View.
Hey, you remember the topic name. That one always stumps him for some reason.
Yeah, I always get like the title screwed up in my head for some reason. I don't know. But it's all that dark side stuff.
Well, this is actually our feature topic.
Yeah, it's our feature topic. And today this week we're talking about...
good. We're not a daily podcast yet.
I wish. But, because I could talk about Star Wars every day.
Oh, absolutely.
So this week we're actually going to cover Luke's connection and reconnection to the Force.
Now, this is funny because we were talking about this off camera.
Right.
And this is something that people don't bring up. You know, this is what we were talking about. Nobody brings this up, but this is absolutely huge.
Yeah. It's a massive thing because, and what we're talking about, for those of you who don't know, we're talking about that in episode 8, Luke Skywalker had disconnected himself from the Force. He wasn't using it. And when Rey was on Octo, and Luke was actually trying to teach her how to use the Force, which is even interesting then because, I mean, granted, he's been using the Force for so long, so he can even direct it, even though he's not using it. It's like he knows what this is supposed to do. And
yeah. So
he was even teaching her how to use the Force, how to read between, you know, the things and see stuff. And she said, well, I can see everything, but I see everybody, but I don't see you.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that was one of the biggest things that I was like, whoa, okay. Well, how's that possible? But then you kind of, as you watch the movie, you know, you realize that Luke has kind of cut himself off from the Force because he really doesn't want anything to do with it. He just kind of wants to just be on Octo and just die peacefully.
Well, and because, you know, he was also, I mean, he was just so consumed by the guilt and shame of his failure that he just wanted to, it's almost like there have been certain bands that I've been in that, you know, once the band ended or whatever, it's like it left such a bad taste in my mouth. I didn't even want to look at a bass anymore because it was that emotional, like I was connecting the bass with that band experience.
Yeah, it reminds me of the scene from Top Gun, one of our other favorite movies.
Oh, yes.
Like right after Goose dies, and spoiler alert.
Right.
And so Goose dies, and, you know, Maverick doesn't want to fly anymore. He doesn't want to go up, you know, and
it's something that he absolutely loved to do, but because he kept connecting, you know, his failure at being able to protect Goose basically and get out of that whole jet wash thing, it was almost like he lost his love for it there temporarily. And Luke did basically the same thing. He was so consumed by the guilt, by the shame, by everything, his failures, that he was just like, you know what? I'm done with the Force. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to risk anything happening again.
Yeah. So I was having a conversation with one of my good friends and fraternity brothers, and he brought up the fact that, you know, do you remember the scene where Luke reconnected to the Force? Now, in the movie, I was thinking about when Rey and Kylo were having their little mental mind meld moment and they were, you know, about to touch hands. and Luke came running out, but that wasn't the first time. The first time was when he was walking through his little cavern on that on Octo, right before he got to the ledge, and you see the water and that thing move.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, Leia at this point is in a coma, but she feels Luke reconnect to the Force, and she calls out for Luke.
Right.
So at that moment, that's the first time Luke actually reconnects with the Force. It's about an hour and 10 minutes or so into the movie. So if you guys are, watching it on Netflix or you have the DVD, it's roughly around that mark where what we're talking about happens. So how do you think that changed the landscape of 8 as far as Luke not being connected to the Force? Like, do you think things would have really been different?
I mean, yeah, because this is something that a lot of people overlook, like I said, is the fact that he had cut himself off from the Force, and then he reconnected with the Force. Everybody, they talk about grouchy Luke, but they don't understand really the magnitude of what this really means for the whole saga. I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
The fact that because first of all, whenever we would see anybody shift, I guess, their attitude in the Force, it was usually they go from the light side to the dark.
Right.
It's usually what happens. They get disillusioned with the Jedi for whatever reason, and they get seduced by the power of the dark side and the fact that they could advance faster. And, the powers tend to be a little bit more aggressive, so they can either demonstrate how powerful you are, or they can actually get you out of a variety of situations. And they can also serve you on your quest for power. Then, of course, you had the flip side in a couple of occasions, most notably Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker, where you see somebody going from the dark side, almost like a repentance, back to the light. What you've never seen in Star Wars is somebody that just doesn't use the Force at all. Now, even in Ahsoka Tano's case, it's true she left the Jedi Order. She didn't go dark, right? She just left the Jedi Order. But she never cut herself off from the Force.
Right.
Luke is the first one who has ever actually cut his presence off.
Right.
Which, of course, we didn't even think was possible because, as Obi-Wan had explained, the Force is what binds us, connects us. And of course, Yoda actually, and Yoda, reinforced that teaching, basically.
Right.
And you're talking about arguably one of, if not the most powerful Force users, cuts off his connection to the Force.
Especially at that time, because
at that time, you have to wonder, did that help give rise to the First Order? Because now dark can actually rise again because the current King of the Light is no more. At least as far as the Force is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
And not to mention the fact that all Luke ever wanted to do was be a Jedi. And now all of a sudden, the fact that he felt so strong about this, that he actually cut himself off, that's huge.
Yeah.
And the fact that he reconnected with it, equally huge.
Yeah, I think that, it had to be daunting for Leia because, and the whole thing of 8 was they were trying to find Luke. And normally, Leia would be able to just reach out in the Force herself and just, hey, Luke, where are you? But she couldn't even do it, and that's his sister. And so because she didn't even have that connection with him anymore, that had to be very, unsettling for her. And I think that, even when Luke first runs into Rey and he asked the question, well, wait, where's Han?
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't even know where his friends are. He doesn't know what's going on in the world because he's disconnected. It's almost like if everybody just turned off their cell phones or something and no one knew what was going on in the world.
Or even to make it more of a correlation, it's almost like if you just suddenly cut yourself off from everything.
Yeah.
Never answered your phone, never answered tests, deleted all your social media, just went off the grid.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be very strange.
The news, nothing.
Yeah, people would be wondering, hey, what's going on with you?
Exactly. And, I thought it was, and I always wondered, I wonder what made Luke reconnect. Because at that time, it's like, okay, he definitely saw how powerful Rey was.
Mm-hmm.
And then once again, he didn't even have to feel it. He could just see And that even made me wonder because it's like, he's like, okay, in between it all, it's okay, I see death and I also see light.
And then he freaked out because she went right to the dark, Yeah. And he's just like...
And he's like, you didn't
really?
even try to...
Yeah, you didn't even try to run from it or anything. But
it's like, well, how do you know? If you're not connected, like, how do you even know that's what she's experiencing? Because you're not connected to her.
Yeah, it is kind of weird. And the other thing, too, is that even going back to Luke just disappearing, right? It's like, well, why did he even leave the map with R2?
That was another big question. Everybody's been asking that, and that's the big question my friend asked.
Well, after 7, of course, the thing was, well, it's just in case, they needed him. He left a map. And it's like, well, obviously that's not the case. Because she had to practically beg him to help, and he still never left Octo.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he finally did help when, things were pretty dire, but
the only way I could see them possibly explaining that is that at that time when Luke did it, he was like, okay, well, in case something happens.
That's
But
true.
he got so far into his depression.
And he got so disillusioned. Yeah, that could be.
And to the point where, like, at that time, that was the plan, but I'm too far gone now I don't even care at this point.
Yeah. That's probably what it is.
So, I mean, that's the only way I can really see that. But I think that even his reconnection to the Force, that whole scene, like I mentioned earlier with Rey and Kylo sitting, Rey was sitting in that little hut, I guess, if that's what you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And she's reaching out and Kylo was kind of like tempting her. And Luke feels what's going on. And he like basically comes to destroy that. And he's just like, no, wait, what are you doing? And then he gets into this whole, I want to say lightsaber duel. It's like a stick fight with Rey. You just kind of have to wonder, like, okay, where is he, what did he see truly? And because I don't feel like we saw everything that.
Well, and don't forget, one of the first little evidences that we see Luke using the Force again is when he broke his fall.
Yeah, that was when, that's the first time you can actually see him truly using it.
Where you're like, oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that was more instinctive and reflected, because, I mean, he was about to take a pretty nasty fall. He probably just, almost like a reflex, did
Definitely.
that. But it is a little strange, and I think that they definitely need to bring this up in 9. I mean, because on one hand, you can say, okay, there's the obvious, right, where, okay, she's trying to convince him, and of course he's resisting, and then at the last minute, he has a change of heart, and he goes in and helps save the day.
Mm-hmm.
But you're probably right. There's probably a lot more going on there. Because it took a lot for him to cut himself off from the Force, and it probably would take himself an equal amount to try to reconnect from it. It had to be something equally as compelling. And I think there's twofold. One, I honestly think that Yoda got through to him. Like, listen, you're taking this failure thing a little bit too hard, and, all this stuff isn't really what you thought. And you just need to take your little Jedi man pill, and just
put your big
kind of suck it up.
Put your big boy robe on.
Yeah, right. Yeah, your big boy robe on, and just get back in there and do what you know you need to do.
Yeah, do you think, now? Because I've had debates with people about this, about the whole astral projection doppelganger thing that Luke pulled off, and then of course afterward, he kind of became one with the Force. Now, granted, Luke said he went there to die. He just wanted to just kind of waste away. Do you think you can just
almost like choose the time, like, oh, I'm done?
Yeah, just give yourself to the Force. Because I just think that someone as powerful as Luke, I mean, even at that age, like,
well, it depends. It depends on how much that actually took out of him. It's like,
yeah, I mean, you see him; he's definitely struggling.
I mean, I know what you mean. Though, in a way, it's sort of like, was it really that much of an exertion that it would kill you? I mean,
because
that's the thing that's really kind of strange, or is it?
Yeah, it's speculative because it's not like the Force really truly exists, so we don't know the limitations or
well, and the other
what
thing
it takes
too
to do
is
something.
that when other characters have given this, like, okay, Obi-Wan's a great example of this. He was giving himself to the Force, but he had a little help, a lightsaber.
Yeah.
But then again, and this is what I always thought was interesting. At first, I thought that maybe they were just changing this because of their prequels. Up until that point, Obi-Wan is the only one in the original trilogy who you ever saw a lightsaber making contact with. So up until the prequels came out, you assumed that when a lightsaber hit you, it like vaporized you.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, you see the prequels and everything beyond, and you realize that it does what you would think it would do. Mm-hmm. Right? I mean, granted, you can bring up when Luke got his hand chopped off.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that supports it too. But here's the thing. Obi-Wan gave himself to the Force.
Right.
Because you never really saw that robe being chopped in half. It was almost like...
It's almost like it dropped before he even got hit with it. I mean...
Yeah, or like it did something. It was weird. Now, granted, I know a lot of this was the limitations of the effects at the time.
Right.
But the idea is that Obi-Wan just sort of seemed to just like disappear.
Mm-hmm. Because like when Qui-Gon died in episode 1... He was there. They had a whole burial for him. They had the whole, not the burial.
Well, he got stabbed, and then when Darth Maul got killed, he got literally chopped in half.
Yeah.
That's what should have happened to Obi-Wan, ironically.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like with Obi-Wan, though, it's like the moment he realized, okay, you know what, I can do more good, and that's what I think Luke did the same thing with Rey.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
I'm getting at the fact that I don't necessarily think that it was an exertion. I think that Luke realized, okay, there's a lot that needs to be done.
Mm-hmm.
Rey's going to need help. Okay, I'm a little bit more good to her in this like spiritual Force Ghost form than I would be if I continued on in the flesh.
And I think the rationale would be people would be too dependent on Luke Skywalker, and Rey would never grow.
Yeah.
Because it's like, as long as Luke Skywalker's around, it's like, well, what do we need Rey for?
Right.
Luke to go do.
Exactly.
But so until Luke is no longer in the picture, and now you have to look to Rey, like, well,
right, because otherwise it'd be like you said, and then it'd almost be like, when you're there to see a certain salesman at a store, it's like, well, can I help you? Yeah, I'll just wait for Luke. That's cool.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, I can help you. No, Luke's got it.
Yeah, exactly. He knows everything.
So yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of where you have to go with it, is that because with him being so powerful, there's nothing almost that he couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw that. So it's kind of like there would be almost no need for Rey, and Rey couldn't really truly grow.
Yeah, I mean, it all makes sense that once Luke reconnected with the Force and he got that information, and it was almost like getting the big picture and realizing all this, I think that he probably realized, okay, look, I could do more, in this form than I could if I continued on, and, for all those reasons. It's almost like in Shark Tank, and for all those reasons, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm out.
And then he disappeared.
Yep.
And a lot of times, I didn't even really think about the Obi-Wan thing until just now, is that Obi-Wan looked at Luke and was kind of like, you know what? I can do more for him.
Well, see, for him, it was age, and that made a little bit more sense.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, Obi-Wan, just like the actors, Obi-Wan was around the same age as Luke.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what they say, but it still looks like Luke has still got some
little spunk left in him.
Yeah, because even his whole little lightsaber duel with Rey, I mean, like...
Yeah, but you got to remember, though, that probably would have been the case in A New Hope if A New Hope had been made now instead of 1977, when George Lucas is over there saying, okay, lightsabers are supposed to be like these really heavy broadsword-like things, and that's how you're supposed to fight with them. Because you remember, we talked about this on the podcast, too. That fan that reimagined that duel.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like, man, could you put that in there, please?
Yes, I know, man.
That was awesome.
Yeah, truly. But I think, I don't know. I still feel like Luke would have probably been able to do more even at that age.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the circumstances, too, you know? I mean, let's not forget that, number one, Luke is more powerful than Obi-Wan at that point. Immensely.
Yeah, definitely.
Number two, the Jedi were still, you know, in hiding, and I mean, the circumstances in the galaxy were a little different. Sure, you still had the First Order running around, but they're not like the Empire was, and you didn't have Palpatine.
Right.
And there's still a toss-up between, you know, there's people that actually think Snoke is more powerful than Palpatine. I'm not one of those people. But we don't really know who Snoke is yet either.
That's true.
What if he's Plagueis?
Yeah, then
I mean, you know, who knows?
Yeah, definitely.
All right, well, let us know what you guys think.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, hit us up on all our social media platforms, like we said before. Head to Head SW on Twitter and Facebook. And definitely hit us up on our website, headtoheadsw.podcast. So we have, what do we have next? We have
one of my favorite segments.
Your favorite.
Where we answer your questions. It's a little segment we like to call Clear Your Mind. All right, who's our first question? These are good questions today.
Yeah, some really good questions. This first question comes from Chris Miles. He asks, do you think we will see more movies that take place between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, or will that time period be covered in the books?
Well, The Mandalorian's going to be covered during that time period. Now, granted, that's a TV show, not a movie, but I think you're going to actually start, now that the streaming service is really heating up, I think you're going to start to see more content, period, during that time period. I don't think it's just going to be limited to books or comics or anything like that. The Mandalorian takes place. I think you're going to see more streaming, you know, like TV series or, you know, maybe made for the streaming service movies. Because let's not forget, even on Netflix, right, you have TV series, but you also have movies, original movies that are made purely for Netflix.
True.
Or Amazon Prime. So there's no reason why when Disney does this streaming service that they got, they couldn't actually make certain movies specifically for the streaming service. And I would be willing to bet that there'll be some Star Wars films that are made specifically for the streaming service.
I agree.
You know, so I mean, we'll see. But I think that you know, because that's, first of all, it's a pretty big gap.
Yeah, I mean, it is a huge gap.
I mean, it's a huge gap.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, and the other thing, too,
tons
is
of stories you can tell in it.
Absolutely. And people, they want to know. You know, they want to know what happened in between that time period.
Now, the only thing is like, who do you, because now during that time period, though, that's a significant time for Han and Leia and Luke. And it's like trying to find people to play those characters, because unless you just never touch that.
Well, they could do it in an animated thing, too, though.
That's true.
And look at The Mandalorian, right? I mean, you're probably not going to see Han, Luke, or Leia in The Mandalorian. But, you know, I'm sure familiar
I mean, that's
characters will pop up, probably side characters, and then you could tell new stories. Now you can mention them, like you're saying. You can, you know, they can certainly be mentioned.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I don't think they're going to touch them in the sense of, you know, you're going to do something that specifically deals with Han, Luke, or Leia, because unless you just recast those characters.
Well, and you almost don't, you could, but you almost don't have to, because what you could do is just talk about things that are happening. So the events of the galaxy are framed by these stories, and then the Han, Luke, and Leia thing could be told through the books, the comics, animated series, things like that, and they can certainly be mentioned. And then when you put it all together, contextually, you can then ascertain what happened to all these different characters without necessarily depicting, okay, let's see Luke doing this, or let's see Han doing that. You know, so
that's true.
I think we're actually headed toward, I honestly think that the future of Star Wars, at least Star Wars proper, is going to be television.
I agree. All right, well, the next question comes from Jeff Bashira. Do you think it would be a bad Star Wars move to bring back Snoke? I have a feeling JJ would try it, and it's going to be weird if he does, because Star Wars just doesn't do that kind of thing, or doesn't do things like that.
That's what they said about a lot of things. They said Star Wars doesn't do flashbacks, and yet we got a flashback scene.
Yeah, but it's also in movies that...
Man, well, I mean, here's the thing. So the question is, do
you think they're going to bring Snoke back?
Do I think they're going to, or do I think it's a good idea to?
Well, I guess we could go with both. Because
it's our show, we could do whatever we want.
Of course.
I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to talk about what happened to Snoke. I don't think they're going to actually bring him back. I think we might get some backstory on him.
Mm-hmm.
Unless, the only way I could see it happening is if we find out it's Plagueis, if he had some sort of a weird plan, if he resurrected himself or something.
Because honestly, I thought that's what was going to happen in 8. Because they did that one shot where...
Well, there was I remember there was either a YouTube channel or some fan site or something where they started actually showing different characteristics of Plagueis and how Snoke fit those characteristics, either through wardrobe, through the way that he looked, certain things that he said or did, and, they're reading between the lines and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who knows?
Well, I mean, it was a one shot in 8 where they had, it was after that whole big explosion that happened on that ship, on Snoke's flagship. And, Snoke's body is laying there. And the way they kind of panned over, it looked like that he was going to come back together or something crazy. But it was that scene where
I'll say it.
Huxon was standing over Kylo with it, and he was about to pull the gun. Your favorite?
Yeah, I still love that scene. I really love that scene.
It was in that scene though where I thought they were actually going to show Snoke come back alive or something. I was like, oh, are they going to do this? But they didn't. So
hey,
I don't know.
They brought Darth Maul back.
True, and he was severed in half. That is
same thing.
That's very true.
If they want to bring him back, they can find a way to bring him back. It just depends on two things. One, do the powers that be still feel they have a story to tell? Because one of the problems that I've had with this new trilogy is it just doesn't seem like they had a predetermined direction.
Mm-hmm.
What they should have done, and we brought this, I think we did a whole podcast on this actually, where it's like, they should have said, okay, here's what needs to happen by the end of 7, here's what needs to happen by the end of 8, and here's what needs to happen. Here's where we need to end up at the end of 9. Now you, Mr. Director or Miss Director, can fill in the blanks. You start here, you end here. Whatever happens in between is up to you, but it's got to end up here.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is that what actually seems to have happened is that it's sort of like, okay, yeah, we like this idea for 7, go do it. And then Rian Johnson comes along. Okay, now you could do whatever you want. You see what happened with 7, now take the story wherever you want. And then originally Colin Trevorrow, now you can do whatever you want. And it was like they never really had this predetermined plan.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I don't like about this sequel trilogy. So it's really difficult to say what's happening with Snoke, because I don't think, when JJ set up Snoke, I don't think JJ wanted him to die in 8. So who knows?
Yeah.
Now, granted, he did executive produce 8, so I mean, I don't know. It's really difficult to say. And so whether or not he's brought back just depends on if JJ for 9 or somebody after that says, hey, I got a really good Snoke story. Let's roll with this. Okay, well, the first thing that Pablo and the gang have to figure out is, great, how do we bring this guy back?
Well, yeah, and I think that if they were, I think the only way that would kind of remotely make sense is Hux. I think if Hux realized, you know what?
He's like a sorcerer and he knows how to bring back the people from the dead.
No.
I like it.
No, but
Let's roll with that.
No, but I think like, okay, let's just say, Hux was able to get rid of, like, well, you know what? We got to get rid of the Supreme Leader's body and he sends it to some medical facility that they was able to, do something with it.
Yes.
Almost, and then...
That must be some serious Bacta they got in there.
Yeah, I mean, so the only way I can see
can
that...
we get the Bacta Supreme, please?
Yes.
The one that actually, puts together, tissue and regenerates cells.
Well, I mean, if they advance technology that much to, sustain him or find a way to sustain him, because maybe he just doesn't like Kylo at the helm, and he's like, okay, well, with, Supreme Leader Snoke being gone.
Okay, just so you know, they have announced that Episode 9 is going to take place a year after Episode 8.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the technology has advanced that much in a year.
No. What I'm saying, technology has advanced since, I'm talking about, even the original trilogy, even in the prequels.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, you're not talking about between 8 and 9. You're talking about
I'm
more
talking about
between 7, 8, and 9 from 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, I'm talking about, because, I mean...
That's 30,
because, they were able to save Maul.
31 years now.
I mean, they were able to save Maul, and he was cut in half.
Well, that's true, and that was back in,
Exactly, so I'm saying
if
technology has advanced for them that... to that point where they can actually do that.
Okay. That's cool. I mean,
that's the only
I'm not arguing with you.
I mean, that's the only thing I can say, unless he's Plagueis, then those are the two ways I can really see it working.
It's just going to be one of those situations where it comes down to this. It's that Friday the 13th syndrome. If there's money to be made from the character, if some director or writer or whatever has a great idea and they pitch it to Lucasfilm and Lucasfilm likes it, Snoke will be back. That's the answer to the question. If not, then what you're going to get is probably some backstory. You're probably going to get, like a book, a comic series, whatever the case may be. Something's going to happen. But that's really what it's going to depend on, because believe me, Disney does not, from what I've seen, Lucasfilm, Disney, whatever, they do not have some, overarching story that they're doing. In fact, that's the whole reason why they're scrambling right now, trying to figure out what to do and practically rebooting the series, because this path that they're on wasn't working, and suddenly they're like, oh, great, okay, all standalone films canceled. It's like, okay, I'm sure if we do get a 10, 11, and 12, it's going to be a new story. And who knows what's happening over there?
We got to wait and see.
I guess so.
Well, that wraps up the show.
Yeah, that is. That's our show for today. So hopefully you guys enjoyed our show. Don't forget to check us out at Head to Head SW on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Go to headtoheadswpodcast.com. That's our website. Leave a comment in the comment section below.
Yeah, we really love to hear from you all. It's always a fun thing to interact with our fans and with different people who are just fans of the Star Wars. It's great to get these questions. It's great to
absolutely,
find out what you guys think about certain topics that we may have covered, and also give us some insight on things that we might not even know. So
yeah, I mean,
that's how we get information.
Suggest stuff to us. I mean, we're doing this. I mean, yeah, we like to talk about Star Wars, but people have said to us a lot, like, hey, you guys should do a show because your conversations are kind of interesting. And so if you guys, have any ideas for any show topics or any of the segment topics, we would love to hear from you. All right,
yeah.
I'm Eric Vancil.
I'm Darryl Sanders.
May the Force be with you.
Always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.